To import our asset library, let's jump back into Blender, and we are done with the sky dome here. We're going to left click and select all these guys, not the text. We are going to select all these guys here. And as you can see, they are all plain solid object. And as I mark down there, all the material identifier are specified with land underscore something. So we're going to need to create a material preset for handling this specific type of material. So the first thing we're going to do with all our asset library selected, we're going to go under File, Export, and Caleta. Overwrite our previous file in the main selection only, geometry, triangulate, and apply viewport modifier, confirm that. And now we're going to have a slight little problem. Since we are using a PBR renderer for the energy sandbox, I implement a simple PBR renderer. If you want more information on that, check the NRG Sandbox introduction video to know exactly the layout of our render layer and what kind of post-processing effects are also implemented inside the NRG Sandbox. But the Caleta file does not export any metallic or roughness information. So we need to somehow retrieve that information. So I prepare a little utility, a little graphical user interface that extract a JSON file created from the GLTF format, text format. And we are going to use that format to simply extract the metallic and roughness value of each of our material. With that said, that means we're going to go under File, Export, and GLTF. Ensure that the format is embedded, GLTF embedded. So like that, it is a pure JSON file. And we're going to load in a JSON parser to be able to extract that information. In include selected object only. And in animation, I'm going to turn that off because inside my other collection here, I got my little guy for the game and he's having animation. I don't want nothing of that. I simply want to concentrate on these guys here. So I am going to export that and jump back to my NRG editor. I'm going to select the MicroLand directory and once again, asset, import, and go fetch my Caleta file, open that up. This time I am interested in importing the material. So I'm going to click on that. And since the material identifier is on land underscore something, we're going to need to create a new material preset. If you're not familiar with material presets, I suggest you to check the video tutorials. I explain exactly how they work and why you should be using them. So preset, and I'm going to create a new preset that I'm going to call land here. And my identifier will be land underscore. And basically what we're going to do is we're going to derive the plain solid material that was part of the NRG sandbox. So you know what, let me just cancel that for a second and go back to properties and material and go fetch our plain material to have an actual template to base our material presets on. So it's just going to be more simple that way. So with that said, library MicroLand selected, and then asset import, pick our Caleta file, open that up, and continue right where we left. So preset land, the identifier would be land underscore. The shader will be the lib material and plain shader here. So I am going to go fetch my plain material. For the script, it is using the set uniforms that send over the camera position, the sun direction, sun color, and all the projector for my cascaded shadow map. So I am going to set that up, set uniform. For my first sampler, I am having my radiance cube map, and the third one is a shadow map. So 2 cube map and a regular texture. So I'm going to hold shift 1, 2 to select cube map, 1, 2 on the icon to select cube map, and 1 to select the texture. So the first one is going to be my MicroLand, this time irradiance. And instead of the sandbox one, I'm only interested in the current one that I'm using. Sampler 1 is going to be my radiance that is also in MicroLand, and finally my shadow map, SHA shadow map. And we are going to also create another kind of preset, which is a render layer preset. The material preset obviously only apply for newly created material that are about to be imported. If the identifier, the name of that material fit our identifier, in this case land underscore, apply this preset. The render layer preset act on a per object basis. We are having cascaded shadow map that is implemented. So we need to first, before drawing our scene, shading our scene, we need to first grab the depth to be able then later on during the shading phase to calculate shadow. So we need to have all objects that actually cast and receive shadow that are placed on our right depth render layer, which is the first render layer. If you check in scene and the render layer, it's our first render layer pass. So we need to ensure that all new object will be placed on that right depth render layer first. So by creating a rule like this, I'm going to be able to say that each new object that are going to be placed on right depth that have a specific identifier in the primitive name. By leaving that empty, it means all primitive that are part of the geometry. So this is exactly what I want to do. Every primitive part of that geometry that is placed on the render layer, right depth, I am going to apply the right depth material. So every new object that is placed on right depth will apply the lib material right depth straight. So for animations, no. For skeletons, no. And I'm going to go under visual scene and ensure that my new objects are going to be on right depth. And I want to also place them on geometry to be able to calculate shading. So I am ready to import my asset library. I'm going to click import, and I am not looking at the right direction. I'm going to hold shift and 1, and I am going to push 0, shift and 2, sorry. I'm going to push 0. And I'm going to use my right mouse by right clicking on my mouse and dragging it over. I am now moving my default camera that is attached to that render layer. And if I push spacebar, I enter the render of the application here. So you can see that we have everything that is there, but the color is definitely off. So this is because we are missing the roughness and metallic value. So what we're going to do is we're going to import a Lua JSON parser. So we are going to go under properties and applications, and we're going to go under external files here. The platform, I'm going to select that it's for every platform application, and the external file, if I click, I am going to go back in my MicroLand directory, and I'm going to select json.lua here. That is a parser. So I'm going to open that up, and this is, now I am doing it with a JSON file that I'm going to be able to use in a utility or a script as a required, but it can be any type of file that your project may need. And this is also the way you are connecting plugins that are done using C++ and the NRG API or other API. You can include any file you want, and automatically they will be placed under the project extern directory and bundled with your final application. So now we have our JSON parser that is available for scripting. So we're going to head over to our MicroLand directory, and this time we're going to go under asset, and we're going to append an existing asset. And once again, under the MicroLand directory, we got the specific GUI utility that I create especially for that. This is going to, if I open that up, import it inside my current project and jump over to coding. I am going to go under MicroLand and select my utility. And this utility is a little graphical user interface that is requiring our json.lua that we just connect to our project. And I'm going to fetch its location by using the function here, utils get extern, which return me the extern directory that is currently set for the project that it's loaded. So I'm going to use that as a required standard Lua, sort of an include in C++ if you want, in Lua, to pick up my JSON parser. And for the asset path, I already set it. That is going to be under MicroLand materials. So what we're going to do, we're going to select our GLTF file. We are going to parse it. And for each and every material that are contained inside our MicroLand materials, we're going to extract the base color, the metallic factor, and the roughness factor, and apply that to that material. So we're going to build that up, select a GLTF file, and we're going to go back under MicroLand and select the GLTF file that we have just created from Blender. We're going to open up, And as you can see right away, we have the appropriate color, base color, metallic, and roughness value that have been assigned to each and every material located in the MicroLand materials directory. Next, we're going to focus on bringing our level in, and we are going to start building from there. To import our level, we're going to go back to Blender, and this time I'm going to turn off the visibility of lib, and I'm going to open up the visibility of world 1. If I go under shading here to have a better look of how it's going to look like here, this is our first level. So what we're going to do, we're going to push A to select everything, and we're going to go under File, Export, Collada, and select our microland.dae. We're going to override it. Ensure that in the main selection only, geometry triangulate and apply viewport modifier. Export that. Done. We go back inside the NRG editor and jump over by clicking Alt and left to our default layout, and I'm going to enter edit mode by clicking render and geometry, or simply click Shift and 2. And what I want basically is to turn off the visibility of all these guys. All I was interested in by bringing in the asset library is their geometry and their material. Now that my level is coming in, I'm going to, at import time, connect the existing assets that I'm having, all these mesh, all these geometry, and all these materials, so they won't be duplicated. So to do that, and I'm going to turn off also the pivot point here. I'm going to go under properties and scene. I'm going to scroll all the way down, misdrawing, draw pivot, turn that off. Okay, so I'm going to go in the outliner, and I am going to select the next object that is below the sun, and I'm going to click on its visibility, and it's off, and I drag all the way down to turn off the visibility of all these objects here, because my level will be placed around this area. So now I'm going to go under MicroLand, and I'm going to click on my asset list, asset import, and I'm going to go select my MicroLand.dae, open that up. And this time I am going to simply I'm going to turn off animation and skeletons, and I'm going to go under visual scene because we've got everything set up already. And I'm going to ensure that all my object will be on right depth and geometry for shading. And now, very important, if I scroll all the way down, library integration, scan for existing assets. Try to find a match for the material that we're about to import, for the mesh that we're import, so like that they won't be duplicated. We have already imported them. All we want is to reuse them. So I am going to click import here, and we have our first level that it's imported. If I push spacebar 0 to select the active camera, turn my camera a bit, and push spacebar to check how my application look like. We have our first level here. There's a few things that are off in terms of coloring. We can see also the shadow. We're going to fix all that in a later step. Now we're going to focus on bringing in our little guy, and we are going to start setting up physics, and we are going to tweak the visual in a moment.